What's going on? Welcome back to my channel, and today we are here to talk about a very pertinent topic, which is household flooding here in Canada, and more specifically as of late, right here in my hometown of Halifax, Nova Scotia. All right, you're gonna wanna make sure to stay till the end because I provide a number of tips to prevent household flooding, both from an outside perspective and also inside the home. But before we get started on that, it's important to address why we're seeing so much flooding happening here in Canada and what's gonna happen here in the future. So the topic of climate change has really been around since the 1970s, but it's widely adopted now, and there's only a select few or select groups that are now, disputing the fact that this is something that actually exists. But I think most of us realize that this is having huge impacts on our environment and therefore how we go about our lives and ultimately the safety of our household. So I'm not here to get into how we get global warming, talk about greenhouse gases, emissions, and all those things. Those are for the politicians and the scientists, but I do want to talk about the impacts and how it's causing flooding. So ultimately, these rises in temperatures are causing more rain and faster melting of snow, which we have a fair amount of up here in the north. And while climate change is absolutely the #1 cause, because of human development and developing cities, we've lost some natural resources like trees, wetlands, open fields that really help with this flooding circumstance. And as a result, this is just contributing further to the problem. So typically when we look at the causes of what happens when a home floods, there's 3 typical culprits. So #1 is overland flooding, #2 is sewer backup, and #3 is groundwater infiltration. And depending where you live and the type of home that you have, some of these aren't going to be a factor at all, but it's important to listen up because all 3 of these things can be a factor when your house floods. So before we dive into what actually causes these floods and how you can prevent it in your home, it's important to note that this isn't something that you can just take a quick glance at the outside of your home or the inside of your home and think that you are safe or there's no issues. Some of these items are absolutely DIY-able, but others are going to require getting a proper contractor in and making sure that you have a long-term solution in place. So outside issues like short window wells, improper grading, and downspouts that aren't far enough away from your foundation are key components in what causes outdoor water to get in your home. So when we get to the inside of the home, these are more preventative measures if water's already finding its way into your home. So these are things like sump pumps, making sure that your floor drains are clear, and also storing some of your valuables up away off the floor or potentially in plastic containers so they're not damaged when water does get in your home. The harsh reality of this is that water will eventually find its way into your home. So you can do all of these things, and it's not to say that your home is fully protected. So you do need to have some preventative measures or some actions that are going to help you be prepared if water ever does find its way into your home. So this first one might be something that you recognize when you're going to take the garbage out and you notice the city's stormwater drain. Maybe it's plugged up with a bunch of leaves or garbage. Now, while this shouldn't be your job to maintain this, it's in your best interest to ensure that the one that's closest to your home is clear of debris so that water can get down there and drain off the street properly. This next one I see in the majority of the homes that I deal with, and that is dirty eaves troughs, which are just basically what collects all the rainwater off of your roof and then distributes it down to your downspouts. The main culprits of this are leaves and even some of the particles that come off of your shingles. Eventually over time, as those wear, they will collect in the bottom of your eaves trough, and that does prevent water from draining properly off the roof out into these downspouts and ultimately away from your property. So while not ideal, get out your ladder, climb up on your roof, clear out these eaves troughs to allow the flow to properly go through your eaves trough down to your downspouts and out as far away as possible from your foundation. Once this collects in and around your foundation, it's just a matter of time before it's going to find the path of least resistance, and sometimes that is into your basement. And as I mentioned earlier, some of these things are hard to look at from the untrained eye, and that is improper grading of your lot. What I mean by that is you may think that you have a very level lot or one that actually slopes away from your home, but really it's the first 4 to 6 feet from your foundation that you need to be mindful of. And quite often driveways settle over time, or your lawn actually settles in and around the foundation because that's where the work was done and it's been disturbed in the past, even though your home maybe was built decades ago. If that's the case, try to get a load of fill and make sure that that slopes away from your home so that any rainwater that does collect in and around your home is going to be sloped away from your home and away from getting into your basement. There's certainly more extensive measures that you can take on the outside of your home that involve things like French drains or what are called weeping tiles in and around your property that are going to allow water to collect in that area and filter through a pipe that puts it in a safe area away from your property. Now, technically you can do this yourself, but it is quite involved as you need to dig trenches, put it down properly, make sure that it's graded properly. And if it's not installed correctly, a lot of these pipes can get clogged with dirt, debris, leaves, things like that over time. And if you don't install it properly, it's just going to be a matter of time before those get clogged up and don't serve their purpose. All right, now that we've covered the outside of the home, let's move to the inside and make sure that we're protected if water ever does get its way into the home. First off, you want to make sure your floor drains are clear and not blocked by boxes or things that are stacked in your laundry room. This is typically where it's found, so make sure you check there first. There are typically other floor drains that can be throughout the home in your basement, but that's usually the first place to look. Again, the goal is not to have any water get into your home after taking care of things on the outside, but if it does happen, make sure you're storing things in plastic Tupperware containers, those big bins. You don't want to be storing them in cardboard boxes and having them sit on the floor. If water ever does find its way in there, it's a quick way to destroy some valuables or things that you're storing in that laundry room. So next is installing a sump pump system in your home. So this is a preventative or a reactive measure, but what this does is actually collects the water and pumps it back outside of your home. These aren't overly expensive to install and can be a good protective measure. The big issue that I see is that maybe there's not a backup sump pump, or number two is that if the power goes out and you don't have a backup battery to run these, there's no use of having that sump pump there because it's not able to run. Typically when we get these big snowstorms or rainstorms, the power also goes out here, especially locally in Nova Scotia. So if you don't have a backup for this to run and get that water out of there, this is when we see a lot of these major issues happen, and you need to prevent that by making sure you have a backup battery in place to pump that water out of your home during these major storms. I also mentioned sewer backups as a way that your house can flood earlier, and it is as nasty as it sounds. One of the main ways you can prevent this from happening is installing a backwater valve on your sewer lateral line out to the city. This valve essentially just allows water to flow out of your home, but if there's ever a backup trying to come into the home, that valve closes. It's a little trap door that prevents water from coming back up into your home. All right, so in wrapping up, it's really important to note that there are major preventative measures that you can take to make sure that your home is as safe as possible from some of these flooding issues that we've been seeing more frequently here in Canada, but specifically, like I said, in my home province of Nova Scotia. The good news is these aren't expensive things to do, and in fact, you can DIY most of these. However, if you are looking at something that's more extensive, maybe it's involving grading away from your home and you have a large property, maybe it's installing French drains or even a sump pump, you're gonna wanna make sure that you contact a professional to have this done so that you have the peace of mind knowing that the next time a major storm comes, you're gonna be safe and your home's gonna stay dry. I know this isn't the most exciting topic to talk about, but I've been very adamant about informing people about this as much as possible because in my understanding, this is only going to get worse, and a lot of homes aren't prepared to take these types of things on, and we need to level up our homes to make sure that our basements stay dry, our hoses stay safe, and we don't lose all these important valuable possessions that we do have. I wish you all the best. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.